Immigration Customs Enforcement, stop where you are. We need to ask you some questions about this address.
Good morning. What's this about?
What is your name and what is your immigration status in the United States?
My name is Raymond Caldwell. I'm a United States citizen. I'm a Major General in the
This
United
is my
States
home.
Army.
Sir, we need to see identification
Your
proving.
6 o'clock in the morning, a quiet street in Alexandria, Virginia. A man in his driveway loading equipment into his vehicle for an early meeting at the Pentagon. 2 ICE agents pull up, block his car, step out with hands near their weapons, and demand he prove he belongs in the country he spent 31 years defending. He shows them his military ID. They don't believe it. He shows them his Pentagon access badge. They say it could be forged. He tells them he's a 2-star general in the United States Army, currently serving, and that he has a meeting with the Secretary of Defense in 3 hours. Agent Carl Briggs looks at the 2-star general standing in his own driveway in a residential neighborhood in Alexandria, Virginia, and says the words that will end his career before lunch. "Sir, you're going to need to come with us." The Ring camera on General Raymond Caldwell's front door captured everything in 4K. Every word, every badge flash. Every moment, these 2 federal agents decided that a black man loading military equipment into a vehicle at 6 in the morning was suspicious enough to question about immigration status. And unlike federal systems that can be accessed and altered, this footage was already backed up to private cloud storage that no one from any agency could touch. What happened in that driveway in the next 22 minutes would trigger a congressional hearing, result in criminal charges against both agents, and produce one of the most sweeping policy overhauls in ICE's history. If you believe that 31 years of military service should mean something, subscribe now. Because what they did to General Caldwell in his own driveway on a Tuesday morning is the kind of story that makes you understand exactly why accountability matters. General Raymond Caldwell was 57 years old, a 2-star Major General in the United States Army with 31 years of active service. He'd served in Desert Storm, Iraq, and Afghanistan. He held a master's degree in strategic intelligence from the National Defense University. He'd been awarded the Distinguished Service Medal, the Bronze Star with Valor, and the Legion of Merit. He commanded 14,000 soldiers across 2 bases. He lived in a 6-bedroom colonial home in Alexandria that he'd owned for 14 years with his wife, Dr. Patricia Caldwell, a cardiologist at Walter Reed Medical Center. They had 3 children, all in college. He drove a dark green Range Rover with Army base sticker on the windshield. He wore his uniform to the Pentagon 3 times a week. He was exactly the kind of American that recruiting posters are made of, and he'd never once in 31 years been asked to prove he belonged here. Agent Carl Briggs was 39, 11 years with ICE, a file bulging with civilian complaints, aggressive tactics, racial profiling, excessive force allegations going back 7 years, all somehow resulting in nothing more than letters of reprimand. His partner, Agent Donna Wells, was 34, 6 years with ICE, ambitious and known for following Briggs's lead without question. They'd received an anonymous tip the night before claiming that residents of a certain address in Alexandria were known associates of undocumented immigrants. The tip gave an address. General Caldwell's address. No names, no specifics, no supporting evidence, just an address and an accusation. Briggs ran the address through federal databases and found it registered to a Raymond Caldwell. He didn't check military records, didn't check DoD databases, didn't call the Pentagon. Just decided Raymond Caldwell at that address was worth investigating and set his alarm for 5:30. The Ring camera shows their unmarked black Dodge Charger pulling to the curb at 6:03 a.m. General Caldwell is already in the driveway in full dress uniform, Army green service uniform with 2 stars on each shoulder, his decorations visible across his chest. A Distinguished Service Medal among them. He's loading a briefcase and a military-grade laptop case into the back of his Range Rover. The base sticker is visible on the windshield. He doesn't notice the agents immediately. He's reviewing something on his phone. Briggs and Wells get out of the vehicle and approach, walking across the lawn toward the driveway. General Caldwell hears them and turns. His face shows mild curiosity, nothing more. He's a man completely at ease in his own space. Good morning. Can I help you? Briggs shows his badge, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We need to ask you some questions. We received information about this address. General Caldwell's expression shifts slightly. The morning light catches the 2 stars on his shoulders. Information about what? Briggs ignores the question. What's your name? Raymond Caldwell. And what's your status in the United States? My status? General Caldwell's voice is measured. I'm a U.S. citizen. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm a Major General in the United States Army. His hand gestures toward the 2 stars on his shoulder, toward the decorations on his chest, toward the base sticker on his vehicle windshield. Briggs doesn't look at any of it. We need to see identification. General Caldwell reaches into his uniform pocket and produces his military ID. He holds it up. This is my military identification card. It shows my name, rank, branch of service, and security clearance level. I'm a 2-star general. Briggs takes the card, looks at it for approximately 4 seconds and hands it back. This could be forged. We need additional documentation proving citizenship. General Caldwell stares at him. The ring camera captures the general's face in perfect clarity, a man of extraordinary self-discipline engaging every ounce of that discipline to remain calm. A military ID issued by the Department of Defense cannot be forged. The security features are extensive. You can call the Pentagon right now and verify my identity. We'll verify through our own channels, Wells says, stepping to the general's right, cutting off the angle to his vehicle door. In the meantime, we need you to come with us for questioning. General Caldwell doesn't move. I am not going anywhere with you. I have a meeting at the Pentagon in 3 hours. You have shown me no warrant. You have cited no specific probable cause. And you are asking a 2-star general in full dress uniform to prove his citizenship based on an anonymous tip about his address. His voice is still controlled, but the authority in it is unmistakable. This is a man who commands 14,000 soldiers. Do you understand how far outside any legal or logical boundary you are right now? Briggs's jaw tightens. Sir, if you don't cooperate, we're going to have to detain you. On what charge? General Caldwell demands obstruction of a federal investigation. For asserting my constitutional rights in my own driveway. General Caldwell reaches into his vehicle and retrieves his Pentagon access badge, a high-security credential with biometric features, his photo, and Major General in capital letters. His hand also goes to his phone. He presses a button and holds it up. Siri, call Colonel Harris. A voice from the phone immediately responds, calling Colonel Harris. He's calling his aide. Wells moves closer. Sir, put the phone down. General Caldwell doesn't put the phone down. Colonel Harris, this is General Caldwell. I'm being detained in my own driveway by 2 ICE agents. I need you to contact the Pentagon legal office and the secretary's staff immediately. Tell them I may be late for the 7 o'clock. The phone call is captured on the ring camera's audio, every word. On the other end, Colonel Marcus Harris, the general's aide, has just been told something so extraordinary that he repeats it back. Sir, did you say ICE agents? Yes, General Caldwell says, his eyes locked on Briggs, 2 of them in my driveway without a warrant. Briggs reaches for his handcuffs. The ring camera captures everything that follows with devastating clarity. Wells moves to assist. General Caldwell takes 1 step back, his voice rising for the first time. If you put those handcuffs on me, you are committing a federal crime. I am an active-duty 2-star general. You have no probable cause. You have no warrant. You are about to assault a senior military officer. Both of you stop right now. Briggs doesn't stop. He grabs the general's arm, the arm with the Distinguished Service Medal on the uniform above it. General Caldwell, still disciplined, doesn't resist physically, but he speaks loudly, clearly, directly into the ring camera's microphone. My name is Major General Raymond Caldwell, United States Army, serial number 342897741. I am being detained in my driveway at 6:14 a.m. by ICE agents who have identified themselves but produced no warrant and articulated no specific probable cause. I am in full dress uniform. I am displaying military credentials. My Pentagon access badge is in my left hand. This is being recorded. The handcuffs click shut. The Ring camera captures the sound with crystal clarity, the ratchet mechanism closing over a distinguished service medal recipient's wrists in his own driveway at 6 in the morning. Mrs. Patricia Caldwell, alerted by the commotion, appears in the doorway of the house. She's in her medical scrubs, coffee in hand, preparing for her own hospital shift. Her face shows confusion, then horror. "Raymond, what is happening?" General Caldwell's voice remains steady for his wife. "Patricia, call the Pentagon legal office. The number is in my study. Call Judge Advocate General directly. Tell them what's happening. Call the Secretary's office if you can't reach JAG. Don't call police yet, call the Army." Patricia Caldwell, a cardiologist who has saved hundreds of lives, begins to cry. She also begins to film on her phone from the doorway, a second angle on the arrest. Briggs and Wells walk General Caldwell toward their charger. His 2 stars catch the morning light, his decorations are visible. His Pentagon badge is still in his cuffed hands. They put him in the back of the vehicle at 6:16 a.m., 13 minutes after arriving. At the Pentagon at 6:17 a.m., Colonel Marcus Harris finishes processing what he's just heard and makes 3 calls simultaneously. The Pentagon legal office, the Secretary of Defense's Chief of Staff, and the Provost Marshal General's office, the Army's top law enforcement authority. Each call takes less than 30 seconds. Each person who picks up asks the same question: "Did you say they arrested a general?" At the ice field office, they brought General Caldwell into an interrogation room. His hands were still cuffed. He was still in full dress uniform. Briggs sat across from him, opened a folder and pushed it across the table. "We need you to tell us about your connections to undocumented immigrants." General Caldwell looked at the folder, then at Briggs, then spoke with the calm of a man who has briefed presidents. "I'm invoking my 5th Amendment right to remain silent and my 6th Amendment right to counsel. Specifically, I'm requesting military legal counsel under the Uniform Code of Military Justice in addition to civilian counsel. I will not answer questions without both present. And Agent Briggs, I want you to look at me very carefully right now, because you're looking at the worst decision you've made in your entire career. You arrested a 2-star general in full dress uniform in his own driveway based on an anonymous tip. I want you to think about how this ends for you." Briggs didn't think about it. He pushed the folder closer. "We have information that you've been associated with individuals who are in this country illegally." "Who told you that?" General Caldwell asks. "Because they lied to you." "I don't have undocumented associates. I have 14,000 soldiers under my command, all of whom are U.S. citizens or legal residents as required by law. I have colleagues at the Pentagon, all vetted at the highest security levels. I have a wife who is a physician and 3 children in college. Your information is fabricated or you have the wrong person. Either way, you're going to wish you'd made one phone call before driving to my house this morning." The door opened at 6:47 a.m. Not a supervisor. The ICE director for the Mid-Atlantic region, a man named Thomas Franklin, entered the room followed by 2 people General Caldwell recognized immediately. A colonel from the Judge Advocate General's Corps in full uniform and a civilian attorney from the Pentagon's General Counsel Office. Franklin's face was the color of old chalk. He looked at General Caldwell in handcuffs in dress uniform with 2 stars on his shoulders and said nothing for a full 3 seconds. Then Briggs, Wells outside. Now, the handcuffs came off at 6:51 a.m. General Caldwell rubbed his wrists, straightened his uniform, and looked at Director Franklin. 31 years of service, he said quietly, and this is the first time I've been in handcuffs. Think about that. He was driven back to his home in a Pentagon vehicle, arriving at 7:23 a.m. Patricia was waiting on the front steps, phone still in hand. 3 news vans were already on the street. Colonel Harris had not been able to contain the information. General Caldwell stood in his driveway, the same spot where the handcuffs had clicked shut 47 minutes earlier, and gave a brief statement before getting into the Pentagon vehicle to make his meeting. I was detained this morning without warrant or cause by federal agents who questioned my citizenship while I stood in my driveway in full dress uniform. I will address this fully in the appropriate venues. Right now, I have a country to defend. He got in the vehicle. The cameras caught the 2 stars on his shoulders one more time as the door closed. The footage was everywhere within 2 hours. Ring camera footage, Patricia's doorway video. Colonel Harris had confirmed the incident to Pentagon press, and the story moved like a shockwave through the national news cycle. By noon, the Secretary of Defense had personally called the Department of Homeland Security. By 2 p.m., the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff had issued a statement calling the arrest an unconscionable breach of conduct toward an officer who has dedicated his life to this nation. By 5 p.m., Briggs and Wells had been placed on administrative leave, their credentials seized, their service weapons surrendered. The criminal investigation started within 48 hours, not administrative, criminal. Federal prosecutors opened a case for deprivation of rights under color of law, false imprisonment, and conspiracy against rights. The FBI was involved. The investigation revealed that the anonymous tip had been fabricated, traced back to a former neighbor of General Caldwell's who had a personal dispute with him about a property line and had made the call out of spite. Briggs had failed to verify any aspect of the tip before acting. The investigation also revealed Briggs's prior complaint history, 11 complaints in 11 years, all resulting in nothing more than paperwork. General Caldwell filed a federal civil rights lawsuit 45 days later. The complaint was unlike any previous ICE lawsuit. It was co-written by the Pentagon's General Counsel, the ACLU, and a private civil rights firm. It detailed every violation with military precision, timestamp by timestamp, legal citation by citation. It named Briggs and Wells personally, it named the ICE director, it named the Department of Homeland Security. And it included something extraordinary, a formal complaint filed simultaneously with Congress, triggering a mandatory oversight hearing. The congressional hearing happened first. General Caldwell testified in full dress uniform, his decorations visible, his 2 stars gleaming under the hearing room lights. He was calm, precise, devastating in his testimony. I understand that immigration enforcement is necessary and I support it. What I do not support is federal agents using anonymous tips to detain U.S. citizens without warrants, without probable cause, and without basic verification. Had Agent Briggs made a single phone call to the Pentagon before driving to my home, he would have been told immediately who I am. He chose not to. That choice reflects either incompetence or something far more troubling. The silence in the room after those words could be measured in heartbeats. The trial came 14 months after the arrest. Federal court in Alexandria, Virginia, 10 miles from where the handcuffs had clicked shut in General Caldwell's driveway. The jury included 2 military veterans, 3 black jurors, 4 white jurors, and 3 Latino jurors. They watched the ring camera footage. They watched Patricia Caldwell's doorway video. They heard the audio of General Caldwell identifying himself clearly while being handcuffed. They saw the 2 stars on his shoulders, the Distinguished Service Medal, the Pentagon badge still in his cuffed hands. General Caldwell testified about his 31 years of service, his deployments, his commands, his decorations, and what it felt like to stand in his driveway in dress uniform and be told his military ID might be forged. I've briefed the Secretary of Defense. I've testified before Congress on national security matters. I've commanded soldiers in 3 combat zones. I've received the Distinguished Service Medal. And in my own driveway, in my own uniform, I was told I needed to prove I was American. He paused. The jury was silent. I spend every day of my career asking young men and women to trust that this country is worth defending. What do I tell them now? The cross-examination of Briggs was surgical. Agent Briggs, when General Caldwell showed you his military ID, why didn't you verify it through DoD channels? I didn't think it was legitimate. Why not? It was in uniform standard issue format. It had security features visible to the naked eye. His vehicle had a Pentagon base sticker. His uniform displayed his rank. What specifically made you think the ID was forged? He looked like someone who might not be a citizen. The courtroom went absolutely silent. The prosecutor waited a full 5 seconds before speaking. He looked like someone who might not be a citizen. Can you define what that looks like, Agent Briggs? Briggs had no answer. Wells testified that she'd followed Briggs's lead without questioning whether there was legal basis. She admitted she'd seen the military ID and the 2 stars and continued with the arrest anyway. She admitted the anonymous tip had not been verified. She admitted she'd known something was wrong but hadn't spoken up. Dr. Patricia Caldwell testified about watching her husband handcuffed in his dress uniform, about calling the Pentagon legal office while filming through her doorway, about the dreams she still had about that morning. 13 military colleagues testified as character witnesses. The Secretary of Defense submitted a written statement. Expert witnesses demolished the defense. Constitutional law professors, military law experts, former federal prosecutors who explained that verifying identity through a single DoD phone call would have taken 3 minutes and prevented the entire violation. The jury deliberated for 7 hours, guilty on all counts against Briggs and Wells. The criminal verdict came first: 6 months in federal prison for Briggs, 4 months for Wells, both barred from federal law enforcement for life. The civil verdict came 3 weeks later. The jury awarded $18.4 million, $3.4 million compensatory, $15 million punitive. But more significantly, the settlement included a consent decree requiring ICE to implement mandatory military credential verification protocols, anonymous tip verification requirements, and racial profiling training across all field offices nationally. The congressional response was swift. New legislation requiring federal agents to verify military credentials before any detention of individuals in uniform passed with bipartisan support. The legislation was named informally the Caldwell Verification Act. General Caldwell continued his service, completing his command tour before retiring at 58 with full honors. At his retirement ceremony attended by the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, he spoke about accountability. "I spent 31 years defending the Constitution. Every soldier I commanded swore an oath to it. That oath doesn't have exceptions for agents who think their authority supersedes constitutional protections. The consent decree, the legislation, the verdict, those aren't victories for me. They're victories for every citizen who's been told they need to prove they belong." Briggs served his sentence. Wells served hers. Both lost their pensions. Both attempted appeals that were denied. Their names became synonymous with the highest-profile ICE accountability case in the agency's history. The Ring camera footage, 22 minutes of a 2-star general being handcuffed in his driveway, is now standard training material in both ICE and military law enforcement academies. It shows 2 things simultaneously: the worst of what federal authority can become and the best of what institutional accountability can achieve. Should federal agents face mandatory criminal prosecution for arresting active-duty military officers without warrant verification? Comment below. Because what happened to General Raymond Caldwell wasn't about immigration enforcement. It was about 2 agents who looked at a black man in a driveway and decided he needed to prove he belonged in a country he'd spent 31 years defending. If you believe military service means something and that accountability is not optional, subscribe and turn on notifications. Tomorrow we cover another case where someone's badge turned out to be worth less than the Constitution they swore to uphold.